Esther, a model assistant for Crypto Jews by Ronit Treatman, and the Society of Crypto Jews, along with our sponsors, Lawrence and Kathy Kanter of the Philanthropic Fund of JCF of Northeast Florida, are bringing this program to you today. We thank you for joining and supporting this event. Proceeds will be used to help fund the SCJS conference in Southern California next year. In addition to a heartfelt thanks to Ronit for being here today, I extend special thanks to Blanca Carrasco and Corrine Brown. Working together as a team, we have worn many hats to bring this program to you. I'd like to wish those of you who celebrate Happy St. Patrick's Day, and you may be wondering why SCJS has chosen to host this event today. Well, in 1 week, Jews will experience a holiday jubilance when the story of Esther is revisited as Purim is celebrated. We hope that Ronit Treatman's timely talk, Conversos and Santa Ester, will inspire a greater sense of excitement and joyful anticipation as you prepare to celebrate a holiday ahead. My name is Diane Mock. I'm treasurer for SCJS and today's lecture facilitators. Like many other crypto Jews, I have an affinity for Queen Esther. I'm excited to learn more about how Esther is viewed by B'nai Anosim. I first heard Converso and Santa Ester lecture last summer at the 2023 conference in El Paso. And whether you saw it there or not, anyone tuning in here today will gain new insights about Queen Esther, as Ronit will be sharing information that she was not able to get to during the conference due to time restrictions. She only had, I think it was 20 minutes there, and she had a lot more material to cover, but wasn't able to. Before I introduce Ronit Treatman, here are some Zoom guidelines. Please, everyone, stay muted. I'd appreciate if you would write your questions in the chat and tell us where you're from. Share that with us, please. At the end of Ronit's talk, I will read, or someone will read your questions, and she will answer as many as possible in the time we have left. Everyone will receive a link to the recording for today's lecture. About Ronit. Ronit was born in Israel and grew up in Ethiopia and Venezuela. After serving in the IDF Foreign Liaison Division, she studied international business administration in the United States. She's a mom with 3 children and resides in Philadelphia. She speaks 5 languages and is a writer, editor, and ultimately was president of the Philadelphia Jewish Voice. As a teacher and communicator of experiential family-based Jewish practice, Ronit created the website Hands on Jewish Holidays, plus a book of the same name, and now that's printed in 5 languages. She is a frequent contributor to various publications, and she has presented at conferences worldwide. Recently, Ronit volunteered in Israel, doing everything from picking citrus fruit on farms to cooking for and donating blood for soldiers. Just ahead, she will explore the symbolic the symbolic renaissance, I'm having trouble with that word, that Queen Esther and her hidden identity within the B'nai Anosim communities. She will also discuss how different beliefs and practices transformed Queen Esther into Saint Esther and Purim into the fast and feast of Saint Esther. During her talk, she will also review the observance of the fast and feast of Saint Esther as found in an actual case study in the Inquisition files of Mallorca and review field research into current existence of the phenomenon of St. Esther in the southwestern United States, to include the tradition of Santernos and retablos of St. Esther, including photos of actual pieces of artwork. If you'd like to stay connected with her, you can find other lectures on YouTube or Reconectar, an Israeli Spanish language nonprofit that connects Jewish people and descendants of forced converts from Judaism from Iberia, and they're known as the B'nai Anosim. Further comments aside, I present Ronit Treatman and invite you to enjoy her presentation of Conversos in Santa Esther. Take it away, Ronit.
Thank you. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. And as soon as we start our PowerPoint, we can begin. So we will be discussing Queen Esther. She was a model of resistance for crypto Jews. Next, please. So, of course, the story of Queen Esther, as many of you may know, is recounted in the scroll or book of Esther. And I'll do a quick recap in case anyone doesn't know it, which is in the about 2,500 years ago in the Persian Empire. There was a king. His name was Ahasuerus. And there also lived a little orphan girl whose name was Hadassah. She lived with her uncle Mordechai. And the king got angry at his wife Vashti because she refused to appear before him. And so he sent her away and decided it was time to find a new queen. And so Uncle Mordechai told Esther, we will now change your name. I'm sorry, I told Hadassah, you're no longer Hadassah, you're now Esther. And remember always that you're Jewish, but don't tell anyone about it. And then she had to go live in the palace and with all the other young unmarried girls of the empire until the king could choose a new wife. And he chose Esther. And so then she was the queen of, now she became the queen of Persia. And Uncle Mordechai got the king's vizier angry. His name was Haman. He would not bow down to Haman. And Haman discovered that Mordechai was a Jew. And so he persuaded the king to sign a decree saying that he could kill all the Jews in the empire. And back then, by the way, all the Jews in the world lived in the Persian Empire. So it really was about annihilating the Jews. And so then Uncle Mordechai told Esther that this was coming to all the Jews, including her, that she would have to go and ask, reveal herself to the king and save her people. And so Queen Esther asked all the Jews to fast with her for 3 days before she would approach the king. And then she risked her life, approached the king, invited him and Haman to banquets, and eventually revealed that she was a Jew and asked him to spare her people. And the story ended happily for the Jews. Haman was killed, the Jews were saved. And then that's basically recorded in the Scroll of Esther, which is part of it's included in the Jewish Bible, and it is, next please. Oh, and I forgot to, there's at no time in this scroll is God mentioned. It never talks about God. Next one, please. So the Scroll of Esther is included in the Catholic Bible. It has some additions and changes. And the most important one is there's an Esther's prayer. Now God is introduced. There's a very long prayer. Next, please. And it is read, it's included in the Catholic lectionary. It is read during the first week of Lent. And because of the calendar, sometimes there's an overlap of Lent and Purim. Next, please. So in Esther's prayer, it's a very long prayer, but basically she prays to God. She tells God she only believes in the God that chose the children of Israel, and tells them we have sinned, all the children of Israel have sinned, and she asks God to help her. She prays to God. She says, please help me. And the crypto Jews of Iberia and all of their descendants held on to this scroll. And they took in the prayer, Esther's prayer, and it was a bid to retain their authentic identity. They have held on to this day. Next, please. So now we go to Iberia. And so in Iberia, the Alhambra decree was issued in 1492 by Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand. Basically what it said was all the Jews in the kingdom had the right to either convert, die, or leave. So many converted, many left. There's dispute about how many, but many. And then in 1496, so the many Jews who went to Portugal, which is right next door, they were fined for 4 years. In 1496, Portuguese King Manuel made a match for himself with the daughter of Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand, and part of the deal was that all of the Jews would either convert or leave. So he issued an edict of expulsion, but he didn't let anyone leave. He didn't want the Jews to leave. He needed the Jews for his economy. And so in 1497, the priests sprinkled a little water and told everyone, "You're now Christian." It was a mass forced conversion. Next, please. Next slide, please. So a part of the response to these pressures, even before the expulsion, was the arouse Crypto-Judaism. And that is where the Jews who convert pretend to be Catholic, but secretly practice Judaism. Next, please. And the Inquisition actually the Spanish Inquisition started in 1478, before the Edict of Expulsion. Initially, what happened was the King and Queen of Spain just tried to look for heretics among, and it wasn't only after Jews, by the way, it was anybody who converted from Judaism or Islam to Catholicism. They wanted to make sure they were true converts. And what they were worried about was, families, some people converted, some didn't, but they were worried that the ones who remained Jewish would influence the ones who said they converted and bring them back close to the Jewish faith. And so, and this was, this applied not just to Spain, but also to all of the Spanish lands in the Canary Islands, in the Kingdom of Naples, all of the possessions in North and South America. So the Inquisition was all over the Spanish Empire. And so next, please. No, that should not be it. Sorry, that shouldn't have been it. Let's go back. I'm sorry about that. Portuguese Inquisition was in 1536, also extended to all of the Portuguese lands in Brazil, Cape Verde, and Goa. And ultimately, the Catholic monarchs felt that it was too much of a threat, and they decided that they had to expel people who hadn't converted. They wanted to have everyone in the same faith. And so the Inquisition was not abolished until 1834. It lasted for 356 years. And so the families of crypto-Jews were conditioned to be secretive about their traditions over all those long years. And it has a long reach. The Inquisition is still felt today. And by the way, in Latin America, where I grew up, it's still a big taboo to talk about this. It's not really discussed. The archives were only open in 1998 by Pope John Paul II. Okay, next, please. Oh, no, I think you skipped a slide. Yes. So Queen Esther was, if we look at her, she was a biblical crypto-Jew. She changed her name from Hadassah to Esther. The root of the Hebrew name Esther is Seter. Seter means that something is secret or occult. So in her name is a secret message. And this was also something, a phenomenon in some crypto-Jewish names. And I'll give you an example of my favorite one, which is Rojas. If you flip Rojas around, it says Sahor, which is the Hebrew is Zachor. Zachor means to remember. So there's a secret message. Remember who you really are. And Queen Esther was told to hide that she was Jewish, but she retained her Jewish essence, her Jewish identity stayed within her. She assimilated into the surrounding Persian culture. She observed Jewish traditions secretly. For example, she said she was a vegetarian and so that she could keep kosher in the palace. And she was an inspiration to crypto-Jews in that she modeled a way for them to remember who they were and to retain their true hidden Jewish identity while they integrated into the society around them. She hid her identities in order to survive, but she never forgot who she really was. And ultimately, she was able to reveal her genuine beliefs, and she saved her people by doing that. She risked her life to save Judaism. And in this way, crypto-Jewish women transmitted to their daughters this model of resistance. And it gave them hope for the future and helped them preserve their true Jewish essence. Next, please. The crypto-Jews transformed Queen Esther into Saint Esther. In Catholicism, saints are not made by the church. They already exist all around us, waiting to be discovered. So a person can be a saint even without being canonized. And this is how crypto-Jews transformed Queen Esther into Saint Esther. And so this is called syncretism, when you hide one tradition inside of another one. So they call her Santa Ester or Santa Esterica. Next, please. So the festival of Saint Esther, it originated in Spain, then it spread to Portugal and to the whole Iberian Union. And in this way, crypto-Jews were able to continue honoring Purim by reinventing it as the festival of Saint Esther. It was a syncretic celebration of Purim, and it was observed and transmitted by the women in the home. It had two parts. The first part was a fast, and the second part was a feast. Next, please. So the fast of Saint Esther was observed in the beginning of Lent. The women would light a votive candle to Saint Esther. They would silently recite Esther's prayer. And the fast lasted 3 days. Some women fasted all 3 days. There was a superstition that a woman who could fast a young woman who would fast all 3 days would find a good husband. Sometimes they split the fast between them, each woman fasting 1 day. Some women fasted from sunrise to sunset, and some women would just forego meat. So they replicated the fast that Queen Esther asked Uncle Mordecai and the Jews of Shushan to observe before she approached King Ahasuerus. And fasting had a special significance to crypto-Jews because they felt like they lived in this constant state of sin. So fasting helped them to atone. And in their homes during the Inquisition, if servants reported that women were fasting, this was something that would alert the Inquisition, would get them invited, because the Inquisition didn't only look at what people ate, they also looked at what they didn't eat and when they didn't eat it. So that would get you investigated. Next, please. So the Feast of Saint Esther, this was a holiday of women and girls. The mothers would teach the daughters how to cook their festive dishes. They would transmit family traditions during this occasion, and the feast was in the privacy of the house. Next, please. So here we have the case from 1688 in Mallorca of Ana Cortes, when the fast and the feast of Esther are actually described in an inquisitorial record of Mallorca. Ana Cortes was a 36-year-old crypto-Jewish woman in Mallorca. They're called chuetes, from the island of Mallorca. Her father, Joseph, had taught her about the observance of the three fasts of Esther. And her uncle was Pedro Onofre Cortes. He was a trader. He traded with Smyrna, Livorno, and Algeria. And so these were cities which had religious tolerance. So he had the opportunity to interact with practicing Jews, and he read Jewish literature, and he attended synagogue. He was able to purchase Jewish books that were banned by the Inquisition, and he smuggled them into Mallorca. Ana Cortes visited Pedro Onofre Cortes in his garden, and he showed her one of those forbidden books, and he taught her some Jewish blessings. So she learned as much as she could about Judaism from him, and then she taught her traditions to other members of the family. And in her confession, she told the Inquisition that she believed in the law of Moses. She was familiar with Jewish rites and prayers and ceremonies. She considered herself a part of the Hebrew nation called the Nassau, and that she hoped that one day the Jewish people would return to the land of Israel. Next, please. So, and it describes her fast and her feast. She said that for the first 2 days of the fast, she didn't eat all day, and then she had fish in the evening. And on the third day of the fast, she made a dish called garbanzos con espinacas y garbelones, which is translated to spinach, chickpeas, and hearts of palm, like stew. And the hearts of palm were the poor man's artichokes of Majorca. They were prepared just like artichokes with like vinegar and olive oil. And chickpeas, that was considered a Moorish food. The wealthy Christians didn't eat that. So anybody eating chickpeas, whether they were Jewish or Muslim, they were gonna attract the attention of the Inquisition. And the dessert, there was nothing suspicious about that. It's called a cazuela or grechonera de brosa, which is like a Majorcan cheesecake baked in a clay pot, like the one in the photo. That's still today a very popular dish there. So there's nothing about that that was suspicious. Next, please. And so because of this interrogation by the Inquisition, there was an auto da fe. Pedro Onofre de Cortés was burned at the stake. Ana Cortés was sentenced twice for Judaizing. She was excommunicated, her property was impounded. She had an auto da fe, which is a ritual of public penance. Next, please. In 2011, the Israeli rabbinate recognized the Majorcan Shuetas as Jews. They said that they had never stopped observing Judaism, and they noted that Queen Esther was very meaningful to the Chuetas. Next, please. And now we're going to talk about Rabbi Barbara Aiello, and thank you very much for joining us. We're very honored. And she's descended from crypto-Jews in Calabria, Italy. And she is the rabbi in Serra Streta to a community of descendants of crypto-Jews. She founded Ner Tamid del Sud synagogue. So in the 14th and 15th centuries, the crown of Aragon controlled southern Italy, Sicily, and Sardinia. And in 1492, the Jews of Calabria were subject to the Alhambra decree. They were expelled. Serra Streta was actually founded by crypto-Jews who were fleeing the Inquisition in Spain and Sicily and Sardinia. According to Rabbi Aiello, the crypto-Jewish women of Sicily celebrated the fast and feast of Santa Esterica. And they shared the same Majorcan customs of fasting of Saint Esther, but their feast was just a little different. Next, please. And they would prepare caponata. And caponata is actually of Catalan origin. It's called samfaina in Catalonia. And it's basically you take tomatoes and onions and peppers and squash, and you saute it with olive oil, and then you add some other things, whatever you have in the house. And so traditionally it was made with a kind of fish called capone, hence it was called caponata. But the fish was expensive, and so it was replaced with eggplant. Eggplant was a Moorish food. It was brought to Iberia with the Umayyad Caliphate. And tomatoes and peppers and squash, those are all foods brought from America by the conquistadores. So when this was made in Calabria, the eggplants and olive oil, everything was sauteed, and that eggplants and olive oils, that was something Jews and Muslims ate. That was not really, if it wasn't made with lard already, it was something suspicious. So this was what that was served in the feast of Saint Esther in Serra Streta. Next, please. So part of the Iberian Union, of course, was all the Portuguese territories, including Brazil. And so I have Queen Esther was very important to the Portuguese victims of the Inquisition. And this is, I will share a prayer written by Portuguese crypto-Jews, which was then taken to Brazil, sent to me by a descendant of Portuguese crypto-Jews from Brazil. And it discusses Saint Michael. Saint Michael was an archangel in the book of Daniel. And in this story, Persia was divided into two kingdoms. They were at war with each other. The book of Daniel predicted that Michael would be a great prince who would protect the Jewish people. And I've translated this poem from Portuguese for you. And it goes like this. Holy Queen Esther, pray for us. Our Lady of Judah, pray for us. I come with nothing, no water, no bread, but I offer God this intention. Lord Saint Michael, praise be to him. Here comes the butterfly from our church. Just as Mordecai was saved, unless it be me too. All hail Queen Esther. Long live Mordecai. Long live the Jewish people. Next, please. Next slide, please. And so there's also carnival syncretism in Brazil. So Brazil has a tradition of the carnival queen. This is something that started in Spain and it spread to the whole Iberian Union. There's a beauty contest and the queen of the carnival is chosen and she's crowned in the carnival. Now in Santa Cruz de Tenerife in the Canary Islands, an effigy of the Queen of Carnival was burned. And I really think this was a message from the crypto-Jews that they sent to each other, where they were saying, if we're not careful, we shall burn. And they still do that today. And in Brazil, Carnival is a syncretic celebration. You have the Carnival Queen, who's like Queen Esther. And then they have King Momo, which to me, this is it's Mordecai, right? So next one, please. Now we go to America, to New Mexico. New Mexico was settled by Juan de Oñate in 1598. In 1598, Juan de Oñate and 135 crypto-Jewish families left New Spain to colonize New Mexico. It was a wild place. There were few Europeans, few priests. It was a perfect place to hide from the Inquisition. And they brought the fast and feast of St. Esther with them. Next, please. They also brought La Conquistadora. So La Conquistadora is a statue of a female figure fashioned between the 15th and 17th century. She was brought to Santa Fe, New Mexico from Spain by Fray Alonso de Benavides. He was from the Ben David family. They were descendants of King Alfonso VII and a Jewish princess. The statue came in 1626. Originally, she was known as Our Lady of Assumption. And so 12 years after the Pueblo Revolt, Don Diego de Vargas took her with him to reconquer Santa Fe. He renamed her La Conquistadora, the Conqueror. The original statue was a female figure. At a later date, a statue of a baby was added to this figure. And some scholars in New Mexico actually tested the two statues, and they discovered that they're from different types of wood from different time periods. And this was the first Madonna statue brought to what is now the United States. Some santeros, or saint makers, and scholars believe that she's a Saint Esther. And so they have in New Mexico, they have something called La Fiesta de Santa Fe, which was a party made to give thanks to La Conquistadora. Next, please. So the Fiesta of Santa Fe is held in the autumn to celebrate the Spanish reconquest of New Mexico by General Don Diego de Vargas following the Pueblo Revolt. So in this party, first of all, Don Diego is knighted, and then the Fiesta Queen is crowned. And there are some requirements to be allowed to be a Fiesta Queen. She has to be born in New Mexico, a resident of Santa Fe, is required to have a Spanish lineage and a last name. She must be bilingual, English and Spanish. She's supposed to reflect the attributes of La Conquistadora, in other words, maternal love and reconciliation. And then there's a procession that takes La Conquistadora from the Cathedral Basilica to a Rosario Chapel. But I think it's a syncretic celebration of Saint Esther. Next, please. I polled some families of the descendants of the people, the first families who came to New Mexico. And it's very interesting because, and I also looked at some of their names because it was a big group in Facebook. And so in the general population of Hispanic families in New Mexico, you don't really see the name Esther very much, but the descendants of the Oñate expedition, they do name baby girls Esther to honor a mother, a grandmother, an aunt, somebody who was deceased. Some people wrote to me, some people I could just see their names, and they shared with me how the tradition of giving the name. So they celebrate the name day on the same day, on Saint Esther Day. They have a party in the house, and this name changes with the lunar calendar. So sometimes it's the same day as Purim. And next one, please. So in New Mexico to this day, there's some families have something called El Día de Ester, right? The name has changed. Now it's called El Día de Ester, celebrated in March. It's a women's holiday, and the women light candles to that Saint Esther, and no one told me anything about saying the Esther's prayer anymore, but they do have a line they take from the scroll of Esther, which is very, very important to them. It's from Esther 4:16, when they say, And if I perish, I perish. They still say it. And the mothers still teach it's still a women's holiday. The mothers teach the daughters recipes. In New Mexico, it's empanadas. They have a party at home. The oldest person says a blessing over the wine. Next, please. And they also turn Moses into a saint. The same way they turn Esther into a saint, they turn Moses into a saint. So they light a candle to Saint Moses. He's the great saint, el gran santo. And the reason he's a saint is because he liberated the ancient Israelites from bondage in Egypt. And so that's why he's a saint. Next, please. In 1964, a New Archbishop was appointed to Santa Fe, and his name was Archbishop James Peter Davis. And he was the one who realized what the festival of Saint Esther was, what El Día de Ester was. And he told them, you need to stop venerating Saint Esther. You're celebrating a Jewish holiday called Purim. And so the people I interviewed from New Mexico, from the descendants of this expedition, of the Oñate expedition, told me that was when many families stopped celebrating. They were sort of intimidated by it, and they stopped celebrating. And it really ended up much of the observance, not all of it, but much of the observance of the Día de Ester in New Mexico. Next, please. In 2010, there was a play by Robert Benjamin. It's called Parted Waters. And the play is about 3 generations of a Hispanic family in Truchas, New Mexico. It's about a grandfather, a father, and a son. They live on a farm. The farm has been in the family for generations. And the grandfather and the father know about the family's crypto-Jewish roots. But the son wants to bury this family history. He doesn't want to tell it to his son. He doesn't want to burden him with this anymore. Now, the grandson is running for political office, and he has a debate with a Jewish opponent. And during the debate, he says a slur against Jews. And that sort of opens up a revelation of the family's history. And it's interesting, many families in the American Southwest who have Jewish roots really responded to this play about the tension, whether you keep the story, keep the history, or just bury it already. Next, please. And this statue, this is called a bulto, right? It's a statue of Saint Esther. If you turn it upside down, you can see that it's a combination of Saint Esther and Saint Moses, because if you look at the dress on the sides, it's like the waves of the Red Sea are parting. And in the middle of the dress, the ancient Israelites are crossing the Red Sea. So this was a bulto that was made by a santero called Raymond Lopez from Santa Fe. He made it for this play. Next, please. Now, in 2016, there was an invitation to a Fiesta de Santa Ester in New Mexico. It was a man who wanted to honor his late mother who used to celebrate it. And so he turned it into a family reunion. He didn't exactly know how to do it because it's very interesting. This is only transmitted from mothers to daughters. And, I try to interview some of them. I was very, very impressed with their ability to keep a secret. It's very difficult to get anyone to talk even now. The men, I could pry some things from the men. The women, no. But he wanted to honor his late mother. He had a family reunion. They had some family heirlooms they included. He had a Santa Ester crown. He had a scepter. They belonged to his mother, and he ordered a piñata that looked like Haman. Everybody came dressed up with a masquerade mask. This is his sister. She was crowned the queen of, she was crowned the queen of the Saint Esther. She was crowned. And so she let me use the picture, which was very nice of her. And there was lots of Spanish guitar, lots of alcohol, and it was a very joyful party. They gave me permission to use this picture. Next, please. And they also have a retablo of Saint Esther, which I was also given permission to use. A retablo is a devotional painting of a saint. The tradition of retablos was brought to New Mexico by Franciscan friars in order to convert the Native American population to Catholicism. This one was commissioned in 2016 by an artist called Andrea Frasquez Barros of Española, New Mexico. She was a santera. She learned from her aunt and her father. And she was a folk art and traditional Santos retablo artist. And so next, please. This retablo is in the New Mexico style. I interviewed another famous santero, and then we'll talk about more later, but his name is Charles Carrillo, and he told me that in the New Mexico style, color is everything, right? They're bright, vibrant colors. It's a combination of old world artistic traditions from murals and mosaics, and from Native American roots of the art too. And so if you look at this retablo, the scene is set like a stage that symbolizes that life is short and transient, like a play. And so we better learn what we can while we're here. It's framed with red curtains. Red is a color of blood. It symbolizes sacrifice, maybe sacrifice of Queen Esther, hiding her identity so that she could survive. The room is very fancy. You can see the golden column, very elegant room. It looks like a palace. And all the colors here, queen, right? There's a queen in the middle. Well, she has dark hair and dark eyes. That's a New Mexico tradition. But all the colors of her clothes and everything, these are the most expensive colors in history, right? You have a lot of gold. Gold is expensive. It's about royalty. She has a crown on her head. She has a veil. The veil symbolizes modesty. And the veil is pink and white. It's sort of like youth and purity. She has the halo around her head. The halo symbolizes the grace of God is shining through her. And she's holding a scepter. It's a golden scepter. It symbolizes power and her royal position. And now the purple of the dress, that goes back to ancient Israel, right? The purple was the most expensive color available in ancient Israel from the murex shell. And this was used in the curtain of the Holy Ark in the temple in Jerusalem. So that's why the colors of her dress, purple and then sort of magenta, it's all made from that. Now, if you look at her hands, in the left hand, she's holding a white scroll and a myrtle branch. And the white scroll, I think, is the scroll of Esther. She's bringing her story, the story of the Jewish people with her. And the myrtle branch, myrtle in Hebrew is Hadass. That's her name, her Jewish name, Esther. I mean, Hadassah, I'm sorry. So she's bringing those with her to the palace as she's becoming the queen of Persia. Next, please. From the window, right, we see the archway. And by the way, this called the arches, all the architecture we see, that's a nod to New Mexico's mission revival architecture, where you have sort of an interpretation of the Spanish colonial style of the Franciscan missions made with adobe. And it's a combination of Spanish, Moorish, and Mexican influences. And they have these kinds of arch corridors. So we see a temple, we see a dome, we see a Jewish star at the top, Star of David. And so and it looks like a sunset, right? The sky looks a little bit like a sunset. You have the clouds with a little bit of gold in them. And there's a path leading to the arch we're looking from. And so I think, to me, this symbolizes Queen Esther's Jewish past. The sun is setting on that life. The path is bringing her to her new life, which is just beginning. But she's brought her original identity and her story with her, and her name too. She brought it all with her to this new life. Next, please. This is Charles Carrillo. Charles Carrillo is one of New Mexico's most prominent santeros. He earned a doctorate in archaeology from the University of New Mexico. He was inspired by the work of the old santeros, and so he was a self-taught artist. His mission is to preserve homemade materials, techniques, and designs of the master santeros of the 18th century colonial Mexico. He paints his retablos on wood, makes his own paints from natural materials like plants and insects and ash and clay, and he makes his own varnish from the resin of trees. In 2006, he was awarded the National Endowment for the Arts National Heritage Award. Next, please. So this is one of his retablos of a Santa Ester, painted in 2014. So she's on a stage, she has red curtains again. She's in the center, you have Santa Ester. So if you see the color, look at the color in this one, right? Compared to the other one, a little bit less bright. It looks like New Mexico landscape because he made all the paints from dirt and other things that are in New Mexico. That's why it looks just like it. He also has the arches of the Mission Revival architect. So you have the Santa Esteres in the center. She has dark eyes, New Mexico tradition. She has the yellow dress, which is a symbol of royalty, again, like gold, very expensive color. The blue veil for modesty, and also blue is the most expensive color. She has a crown adorned with myrtle and a myrtle branch in her left hand, again, reminding her of her Jewish name, Hadassah. The rosette at the top of the retablo has myrtle branches. And her scepter has a pomegranate on it. That is an ancient Jewish symbol of fertility and promise and fulfillment. So I think that it shows that the Jewish people will continue through Queen Esther. So, and this reflects Santa Esther's attributes of loyalty to her true faith and people. Next, please. This is a retablo by Charlie Carrillo from 2017, and it's sort of Santa Esther and Jewish roots. Now, Charlie Carrillo is a Catholic santero, and he was exploring his Jewish roots like many people in New Mexico. And so he shared with me, I'm allowed to tell you this, he gave me permission, that his mother used to tell him, you have the nose of your ancestors, meaning his hooked nose. Now, his family has a tradition of putting small stones on graves. He took a DNA test and he discovered that he's 20% Iberian, 3% Ashkenazi Jew. Carrillo is an ancient and noble surname of Burgos in Castile. Carrillo was a surname so common among Jews and converts that it was considered Jewish. And in Spain, it appears in inquisitorial processes. Now, during COVID, he traveled to Spain and Israel. He shared with me that in Spain, he felt like a tourist. In Israel, he felt an overwhelming spiritual homecoming. And he told me that he did not feel like a stranger in a strange land. So in this retablo, Santa Esther is wearing a blue dress. Looks a bit like Marian blue, right? The special shade of blue only used to paint Saint Mary, the Virgin Mary. That was in Europe, it was made out of lapis lazuli, very expensive. It came from Afghanistan. And in this retablo, Santa Esther is draped in a royal shawl. It's golden, and she has a red and gold sash. That sort of looks like Native American weaving, traditional Native American weaving. She's wearing her royal jewelry. She's wearing a veil, sort of for modesty. She's holding a golden scepter, also topped with a pomegranate here. And there are no curtains in this retablo. She's not on a stage. She's not in a play. She's not acting. In this retablo, the truth has been revealed. 539 years after the start of the Inquisition, we have her name at the very top in Hebrew letters, Ester. So, she's not hiding really anymore. And, you have the crypto Jews held on to Saint Esther to preserve their true essence. Here she is. They transmitted it down the generations. They never lost hope that one day they would be free of the Inquisition. Charlie Carrillo, as he was reconnecting to his family's Jewish heritage, he also reveals Saint Esther's Jewish past by writing it in Hebrew. And I have to say, I've worked with Reconectar for many, many years. And many young people write to me with their questions because they're curious about their Jewish roots. It's actually how I even stumbled upon this whole Saint Esther phenomenon. I'm Jewish, I'm Israeli. I always celebrated Purim from my point of view as a Jew. I never thought about Esther from that point of view of a crypto Jew. And the reason I even discovered it is because a young woman from Venezuela wrote to me. She was exploring her Jewish roots, and she told me, well, one thing about us is we have lots of paintings of Queen Esther in our house, and Queen Esther is very important to us. And I was thinking, wow, I wonder why it's so important to them. I don't get it. I just did a deep dive. That was my starting point of why I even looked into it, because she didn't know why, and neither did I. So I told her I would help her as much as I could. So, that's sort of how I came to this. But I'll be happy to take any questions anyone has. And thank you very, very much for joining us today. And I would like to thank Rabbi Aiello for joining us. I'm very honored that you're here. And thank you for sharing your knowledge with me.
Ronit, we have some questions. One of them is from Valerie Knowles. And it was when you had one of the photographs of one of the Santernos on there, the retablos. This person, Valerie Knowles, was wondering what was she holding in her right hand. You spoke about what she was holding in her left hand, but do you know what she was holding
The
in?
scepter, let's go back to the picture if you would, and we'll take a look at it together. Do you know which one it is?
Yeah,
They both have scepters in both hands. They have in the first retablo we looked at, there was a scroll and a myrtle branch, and then in the other hand is a scepter with a pomegranate. This is only one hand, and this is a scepter with a pomegranate. This one is the one that has two, a scroll and a myrtle branch in one hand, a scepter topped by a pomegranate in the other hand.
keep going, go back. We'll tell you when to stop. There we
Oh,
go.
this one as well, scroll and myrtle branch and a scepter.
Okay.
So it's kind of similar types of symbolism where these, relatively new santeros are bringing in they kind of have the same language in the retablo, if you will, where you have the Hadassah bringing her name with her by the symbol of the branch, Hadass, to remember, and then the scroll with her story, and the power in the right hand, the scepter, that she's no longer, part of this minority that is being threatened. She's in a position of power. She's embedded within power, even though she's really a Jew, is what it is showing.
Okay. So, Judith Cohen from Toronto says, I've worked as a, oh, I just lost her comment here. Hold on a second. I've worked as a ethnomusicologist for 30 years with crypto Jews in Portugal, and this past summer also in Brazil. So that was a comment from her.
Yes. Thank you for joining us. Yes, she's incredible. I've seen videos of her performances. Amazing.
And Suzanne.
So, question for you, Judith. Did they have any songs about Saint Esther that you know of?
You need to unmute her.
No one told me anything about songs, only prayers.
Blanca, can you please unmute Judith Cohen?
Yes, let me find her. Give me a second.
Okay.
You should wave, Judith, so she can find you.
Or can she post it on the chat?
Yeah, maybe.
No, she can't.
Maybe she wants to sing it. That would be cool.
I think she needs to do a verbal explanation.
Okay, give me a second.
We're fine. You can wait.
Okay, there she is. Okay, ask to unmute.
Hi, thank you so much, Ronit, and thanks for this really great, super well organized talk. Also, what a pleasure. So the sad thing is there are no tunes that are specific to crypto Jews that I can find in 30 years. And I think the reason is really obvious. If you are in grave danger by doing anything different, you cook differently, you dress differently, people know your history, then if you sing tunes that everybody else isn't singing, then you may as well just say, hey, come and get me,
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
that's the short version. I mean, I've written articles about the tunes that they use and why and so on and so forth. And I'm just starting to work in Brazil. I was just there for the first time this past summer. I had a research grant, and actually the research grant wasn't for the crypto Jews, it was for the Moroccan Jews in the Amazon.
Oh.
But I was giving lectures in Recife. And the crazy thing that happened is I was at the University of Pernambuco. I was lecturing in Portuguese. And after my lecture, a bunch of men put their hands up. There were women too. They just happened to be men there, and said, hey, we're crypto Jews and we sing, and we use tunes this way. And I sort of went, what? Like in 30 years, groups of people have never raised their hands and said, hi, we're secret Jews. So
Yeah, well, Recife
I'm
has
hoping
a
to
lot.
go and work some more with them. But
It's a shame I wasn't given permission to share the music from the Fiesta de Santa Esther they did in New Mexico in 2016, because they let me hear a video that I wasn't allowed to share it, but boy, that was a fun party. They use like Spanish guitar music.
Yeah,
And
but
they had the
let me
best
just
version
say,
of Havana Nagila I have ever heard in my life. I mean,
sounds
I was
wonderful.
like, I
And
said,
I've
if
heard
you guys ever feel comfortable inviting an outsider, I want to invite myself. This is great.
But I just want to say that there are no really old Sephardic tunes, and I'm sure there are no really old crypto-Jewish tunes. There just aren't. Like the oldest Sephardic tunes that we have are probably maybe a couple of 100 years old, even when the words are old, and the words are often old. So there's a lot of kind of mystique around that. And for sure, if they were using guitars, it wasn't particularly old because, you know, medieval
Yeah,
music.
no, they were
Yeah.
just using normal, to me, well, I'm not an expert like you, but what sounds like normal Spanish guitar music.
Normally what they do is they use the music around them, which is what Jews do a lot anyway. But the crypto Jews that I've met all use the tunes around them, and then they use them in kind of their own coded ways. But
That
if you
makes
listen to
sense.
the actual tune, there's nothing to distinguish it from the other tunes in the, you know, in the area.
Right. Well, thank you so much for sharing.
I also I have another question here. It says, do we know how crypto Jewish descendants recognize or embrace their history, are reacting to the resurgence of anti-Semitism today?
Well, in my experience with my work with Reconectar, they're very Zionist. They're appalled by it. I have a lot of people sending me what is happening in their countries because they're all over the world. You know, sort of, a lot of them have, or a lot of the people that write to me anyway, who choose to write to me, maybe their kids live in Israel. I've had people say, thank God my kid lives in Israel. I mean, Israel's in a war, and they're like, thank God my kid lives in Israel and not here with me. So, you know, it's like every Jew everywhere around the world. I mean, they're very worried about it.
Okay. Moving on down in the chat, Diane Katz posted, interesting that in later retablos, the Star of David on the background building is absent.
Well, the Star of David is actually kind of a newer symbol. I mean, if you look at ancient Jewish symbolism, it's always the menorah. And the Star of David was only maybe started to be used that way in the it's a seal of Solomon, started to be used more as a Jewish symbol in the way that we think of it in the late, I think in the 1700s. Until then, you would have found more the menorah than that. That's just because it's a modern retablo, in my opinion.
Okay, and let's see, as I go down, we have
And one thing I will say about retablos, that people, for example, from Portugal have told me that in their homes it would be any female saint, but to them it was Saint Esther. It didn't matter which female saint it was, again, to avoid detection, right? So you couldn't have anything obvious on the painting to indicate what it was. It just had to mean that to the person looking at it.
at a church that's right off the square. It was in Santa Fe. I went in, everybody said, hey, there's a Star of David above the altar in the Catholic Church. So I went in there, and sure enough, there was 6-pointed star above the altar. I found that pretty surprising. So if you're ever in Santa Fe and right there in the square, go in and look in the Catholic Church and you'll see the Star of David, which that was really surprising. Anyway, Corinne is out there. She made a comment. She's raising her hand. She wants to say something. And so, Blanca, can you please unmute Corinne?
Yes, give me a second.
Of course.
Got it. Morning, everybody. So, Diane, as I understood it, the reason there is a Star of David in the cathedral is that the eventual completion of that building was done by the Jewish community in the 20th century. And it was a later addition as a way of thanking them for their restoration and donation and support of completing a very important treasure and landmark to the Santa Fe community. But I also made the comment about Carnival. And early on in, I think it was the Denver conference back in 2013, we had a professor from South America, I think she was Argentinian, but she spoke exactly about the syncretic assimilation of two religions, and the carnival was a perfect manifestation that the early Jewish settlement under the Catholic Church found a way by tapping into this indigenous, very old spring rite, this carnival procession in which costuming and so forth was a perfect fit to hide the way of celebrating Purim without being noticed. And today, I'm telling you, if you've never been, it's an experience. A lot of people that live in Rio de Janeiro leave because the streets are so crowded with partygoers for 3 days that you can't move. And there's an all-night procession. To get tickets is a very big deal. It's about a half a mile long, and there are bleachers set up on either side of the street, and endless troops of costumed villagers from all over Brazil come. It's a competition, in fact. And everyone is costumed, from your hotel to your restaurant servers. It's really a wild time and something to be experienced. And
Yes, well, I grew up in Venezuela, you know, attending carnivals, and speaking of syncretism, it's not only Jewish syncretism, and Judith, you will love this because you can listen to the difference in YouTube. If you listen to the carnival music from different parts of Brazil, you will hear, if you go to Bahia, it will sound like African war drumming. And I lived in Africa, so I know what that sounds like. They put in there that the drums are talking. It's African war drumming. In other parts, I mean, in Venezuela, I remember seeing some of it. It was like Native American war dance with the machete. They were, you know, doing these dances, but it's a little scary actually, because also they're drunk and they're next to you with a big machete dancing.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, there's a lot of things that go in there that are, I don't think the Catholic Church loves them.
Well, that's the point, that there are many, many tribes and many languages across Brazil. And this is a folkloric celebration in which Carnival really brings together the diversity of this enormous country. But I will say that maybe Jews survived as a convenient way of tapping into this. The timing was perfect. Spring.
But one misguided criticism I heard just last year was apparently the best carnival dancer in Brazil is a Jewish woman. And I had Latin American Jews say, oh, she's doing something from a different faith. She shouldn't be touching it. And I'm thinking, what more could be more like Queen Esther? And then, you know, you got to dance for the king. You put on your feathers and you do it, right?
Thank you.
My understanding is he wanted you to take your feathers off.
That too, I'm sure. They're almost naked. Trust me, there's nothing left to the imagination.
Right. But anyway, moving on down the chat here, Judith Cohen said, in my experience in Portugal, the crypto, now open, of course, Jews are among the staunchest supporters of Israel I've encountered.
Yes.
So that's an answer to someone's question above. I know that, I mean, I'm a crypto, so the first thing that comes to my mind is Quidao. I mean, it's funny to see how my family was secretive. They were very secretive. My auntie who died, I called her auntie. She was really my second cousin, for example. She said that she was not allowed, when she went to school, she was not allowed to invite people over to the house, to her house. And
What I said about the conditioning, right? Hundreds of years of conditioning. And that is why, you know, whether you go to a place like Barcelona, you find that people are very closed, or New Mexico, it doesn't matter where it is, or Brazil or Portugal, very, very, very close. And the only reason, by the way, that the community that I work with all the time, that they trust me, that they communicate with me, is number one, because, you know, I mean, I've been taught to keep my mouth shut since I was born. My father was an Israeli diplomat, so I never reveal anything I'm not allowed to reveal. I'll take it to the grave, and they know it. And two, you know, and I've shared this in my articles before, when I did my DNA test, I discover you know, that part of my family the Ashkenazi side, this was the crazy thing, was before they went to Poland, way before that had been in Spain. And I even got the name of a city, which was Girona, and then it shows 1492, sort of the family splits in half. And the half that I descend from left Spain, they went to Italy, then they went to the Netherlands, and then they went to Poland. But then there, you see half, and it's sort of, the map tells the story, right? They stay there, and then they go to Recife. So that tells me they converted either, or they were forced or they chose to, I don't know. But they converted, and somewhere in Recife, some hot person dancing samba was a distant cousin of mine. So, you know, it's they know that I'm the other side. I tell them, and the other thing, by the way, that many of them don't imagine, I tell them, when I publish this in Israel, you think it's a taboo for you. You should see the blowback I got there for saying part of my family converted to be Catholic. People were like, why did you dig? Why did you publish it?
Whoa. Okay, also, we're getting more messages about the Star of David. Judith Cohen reminds us it's in a lot of churches. It is.
It wasn't only a
open.
Jewish symbol, it was the seal of
It's a whole-
Solomon. You'll find it in Muslim writings and other Muslim things as well, not only Jews use it, and it is, yeah, you'll find it because it was a seal of Solomon.
Yeah, she said it was a multi-religion symbol.
Correct.
So I'm learning some new things here today. And then David also reminds us that there are 6-pointed stars decorating many cathedrals and churches in Spain and Portugal, France, etc. They are not related to Judaism, as before the late 17th, 18th century. The Star of David was not a commonly used symbol for Judaism.
Right.
And Judith again remarks, glad you have the same perspective, David. So anyway, and I do thank you for the clarification of the Star of David. I realize now that it's not just unique to Jews. So is there anyone else who has any? Oh,
Andre,
Andre Brooks has her hand up. Has her hand up.
Well, she's still muted though.
Yeah, Blanca, can you unmute Andre Brooks, please?
Yes, give me a second, please.
We sure will. Valerie, I have a question for you. Are you related at all to Todd Knowles?
I'm asking Andre to unmute. Are you getting the message, Andre?
Yes, can you hear me?
There we go.
Now we can.
Oh, good. I was just making a comment about the Star of David. It is indeed an international symbol and a very ancient one. And you find it on a lot of Catholic places. Also, you see that it was only taken over as a Jewish symbol at the end of the 19th century with the Zionists. They were looking for a symbol for the new Israel as they were setting up the country, and they took it over. And today it's everywhere as a Jewish symbol. But the Jewish symbol throughout time was always the menorah, the candelabra. It was not the Star of David. That's very new, relatively new. It's about 100 or so years old, a symbol for Israel. It's or for the Jews in general. It is not an ancient symbol for the Jews. That's all.
Thank you.
I think Rabbi Aiello has a question.
Please unmute Rabbi Aiello. We're so
I
fortunate.
asked her to unmute. Yes.
We're fortunate to have Blanca. She's our techie.
There we go. Hello, everyone. It's so nice to participate. And Ronit, thank you so much for a wonderful lecture.
Oh, thank you very much for joining us.
Especially at looking at all the artwork from Santa Fe. My aunt, who is of blessed memory, named Elisabetta Ayala, was a New Mexico treasure, and was given that honor before she passed away. Very interested in our Jewish roots, going back to southern Italy. And I was very interested in, I want to pronounce the word right here, syncretism. I was very interested in this word because we see a lot of this in southern Italy, and probably the most predominant is December 31st, when the shofar is sounded.
Incredible that it's still done.
And right at midnight, and it is the horn of the stambeco, of the mountain goat, which is many people even have in their homes, and the whole idea of meshing a Jewish tradition with an ongoing Christian tradition is so obvious here in the toe of the boot. And also I find that we do a lot of surname research. People want to know if their surnames, Italian surnames, date back to the Inquisition times in Spain, and so we trace the migration, the traveling of a surname for people. And after the October 7th massacre, I wondered if people would be interested in discovering their Jewish roots. And I'd have to say, to agree with you, Ronit, that it has just exploded with people with interest. It's almost as though people feeling that now I need to acknowledge who I am, and based on what's been happening, I must show solidarity with Israel. And so we're kind of overwhelmed with work at the moment, but it's nice thing to have happen. And finally, I think I'd put in the chat there, we have in our town 5 Rachels and 7 Esthers.
Wow.
And
You have 7
yeah,
Esters, and it's a small
Yes.
town. How many people in
Yeah.
your town?
600 in the winter, 2,500 in the summertime, because people come up to the mountain. We're 3,500 feet up
Okay.
from, so they come up for the cooler weather. But there's a rich heritage and here, and a lot of words, like when you have a little house out on your land, for your farmland, called the baita, which is from bait. And my husband one time was reminding me to brush crumbs off the table, and he said, he said, "You missed some chametz." I said, "Chametz?" He said, "That's a dialect word." I said, "No, that's a Hebrew word." But because there was no Jewish presence here for centuries, there are many Hebrew words in the dialect. I've been collecting them as well. So this your lecture really brought back a lot of memories.
wow.
And
Thank you.
thank
That's like in
thank you.
Spain, when they still say, like in Barcelona, they'll say hacer el sábado, which is to clean the house, but it's the way that people show it. I'm not keeping Shabbat, I'm cleaning my house, and you know, they're doing Saturday.
Yes.
I would like to add that I had a friend who made Aliyah, and she'd been waiting for a couple years, preparing, doing all kinds of. She arrived in Israel. She is a crypto Jew. Arrived in Israel with her family on the 8th of October, and she's been there since. She was telling me how. What is it? Do you know the word for the classes, the naturalization classes, Ronit? Anyway, she was in
Or
those.
I mean, like the ulpan to learn Hebrew?
Yeah, where you learn Hebrew and the customs of the
Yeah,
country.
ulpan.
Yeah, she's been in Ulpan classes. And she said that it's amazing how many Argentines are there, how many Central Americans are there. People, the cryptos are moving into Israel. And I said, well, how does it feel to be there? And she said, I feel very safe.
Well, I just sent my brother-in-law, who's Mexican, a picture of the first saint in a modern restaurant that I saw in Israel, which was, it was a Mexican restaurant near where my daughters live. And they have the big, you know, the saint that they always have in Mexico City everywhere. They have her up on the wall, and I sent him a picture of it. I said, I mean, It's just a part of the decor of the restaurant that they had it up on the wall there.
So do we have any other questions, folks? I don't. Judith Cohen just made the comment, several people from Belmonte have made Aliyah, and I think is she talking about Belmonte, Portugal? Is that? Yeah. Yep. Interesting. David Wax says, the example of hummus as being a loan from Hebrew. Did medieval Jews refer to garbanzo paste as hummus? My understanding is that an Israeli borrowing from Arabic, let me see. I lost my place. In which hummus, Israeli borrowing from Arabic, in which hummus garbanzos. Likewise, did medieval Jews, Castilian or Italian ever refer to their personal homes as bayit,
Mhm.
opposed to casa?
Yes, some people still do here. Yes. Mhm. People who do not have the little shed, the little house in the campagna, they call their only home the bait.
Yeah, I know that in Spain, the many words come from Arabic. So for example, about hummus, I've never heard of it referred to as hummus, but I can tell you a better example that I actually know pretty well is depending on where you live in Spain to this day. So in the south, you'll call an olive aceituna, right? That comes from Arabic al-zaytuna. In the north, they say olivos, which comes from Latin because they had less of that Moorish influence. So I don't think, I'm not sure hummus is, but other words, you definitely do get them from the Arabic in Spain.
We have a comment from Phil Pickman, who is from Idaho. In what town country does Rabbi Aiello live?
I live in a little village called Serra Stretta in the Reventino, the mountains of southern Italy, in the region of Calabria, which is the southernmost part of Italy on the mainland.
Okay. All right, let's see here. Oh, Howard was remarking to David. He said, I believe she said chametz, not hummus, to refer you to the crumbs.
They said chametz, yes.
Chametz, yeah.
Yeah, which is used for crumb. The word in Italian is mollica, but nobody uses it here. And in the towns that have a rich Jewish past, they say chametz.
Okay. Okay. Going once, going
My
twice.
understanding, Rabbi Aiello, is that you do this unbelievable tour of like mikvahs and other cool sort of Jewish archaeological discoveries in Sicily. I really need to do this with you one day. Can you tell us a little
Yes.
bit about that?
We do a tour of southern Italy through Jewish eyes, and we start at the ancient mikvah on the island of Ortigia near Syracuse, and which is the oldest mikvah in all of Europe. And then we
Wow.
make our way to the archaeological museum in Catania. Then finally to Palermo, where there is the Jewish quarter remains intact. And then we cross the Straits of Messina by ferry, and we come to southern Italy to the finding of the temple at Bova Marina and the excavation there. And then we make our way up to Timpone in Nicastro, which is a Jewish quarter that is intact, and the people who live there are very aware of their Jewish history. And from there we come to the synagogue, which is the first and only synagogue in Calabria in 500 years since the Inquisition times. And then we go to Ferramonte, the concentration camp, which is about an hour from where I'm sitting, for 4,000 Jews were saved by the local villagers and the Italian soldiers. So it's starting from the very ancient and ending up at the World War II site.
Do you find that the women still have this tradition of immersing and not knowing why they're doing it?
Some do. Some do. Some of the very elderly women do. We are right near the Amato River, and so there are women who immerse, and there are some men on Fridays that do. And the founding of the town had to do with a persecution in a nearby village called Cigliano, and the Jews were about to be murdered because there was an epidemic, and the townspeople felt that the epidemic was attributed to the Jews because they were not dying in the same numbers, mainly because they were washing their hands and were immersing on Fridays. And so there's a group of 5 families that decided to run away, and they went into the forest nearby here, about 40 kilometers away, and they lived there for 2 years. And they sent out scouting parties to try to find an isolated area. And some of you who have been to the synagogue, you know that there are mountains, high mountains on 3 sides. So it was organizing the town here was a way of maintaining their safety in a very difficult time.
Right.
But it's so interesting, the whole idea of washing vegetables and looking specifically for insects is almost in every home here.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. You got a lot of things. Yeah. So come and visit us.
Do you have a tour that you sponsor, Rabbi?
Yes, we do. We do 1 tour a year, and we call it Southern Italy Through Jewish Eyes, and it's a 10-day tour. And so then we do smaller ones too, of 3 or 4 days, and give people especially Italian Americans, very interested in discovering if they have Jewish roots. And when they do discover it, they're very anxious to come to Southern Italy. And the majority of Italian Americans and Italian Canadians come from the south of Italy. 81% come from the poorest areas of Italy, which would be the island of Sicily, the Aeolian Islands, and Calabria. So there are a lot of people like to come and visit us, but we're in a part of Italy that few tourists ever see. So.
Yes, I have a neighbor who revealed to me that his last name was the name of the town they were from, because when they converted from Judaism, they took the name of their town. Then he went to see the town when he was doing his roots visit.
It's fascinating. There are a lot of names that people think they couldn't be Jewish. For example, one of our congregants, her name is Patrizia Aiutami Cristo.
Oh,
And she said, every time I tell people my name, they tell me I can't be Jewish, even though my great grandmother showed me all these traditions. But we learned that through our research and our study that many crypto Jews took on these very elaborate Christian names to keep the Inquisition at arm's length, like Lo Spirito di Santos,
De la Cruz in Spanish.
De la Cruz, yes, indeed, yeah.
Okay, so yes, Corinne wants to make a comment. Please unmute her.
Yes, give me a second.
Okay, of course. Thank you. Rabbi, could you please put, pardon me, I don't know if you have the tour information readily available, but if you would like to post that in the chat, that'd be great in case people are interested.
Well, actually, if I can just put in my email, and you can write me if you're interested in the tour.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Judith has been to our town twice, and Harriet Porto has been here as well. So there's some people here that have see what we're doing. Where am I here? Okay, hold on. Rabbi at.
Okay, so this would be the rabbi's email, everybody, again, just to reaffirm this. And you would be able to contact her if you want to know more about the tours she offers. in Italy.
Rabbi at rabbibarber.com. Okay, there we go.
Okay, Corinne is unmuted now.
And I just would like to say for any of you that tuned in who found out about this lecture through an outside source, and we have to credit many organizations that helped us advertise, we'd like to invite you to learn more about the Society for Crypto-Judaic Studies. We've been a solid organization for 33 years. We publish a biannual magazine that's collected by the Library of Congress and a number of universities that keeps you up to speed on what's going on worldwide, as well as regional conferences. We'll be holding our own in-person conference in 2025 in the late summer in Los Angeles. And this coming fall, we'll have an online conference that will be attendable via Zoom. And we'll have our next Kanter lecture over the summer. So we hope that you'll stay tuned to cryptojews.com, check our website often, and if you go there, you can become a friend of the society and get our newsletter, La Granada. But if you join, you get the magazine, and it's highly collectible. So I just want to say thanks to everyone for showing up today. And if you're not familiar with the society, get on board, join us for more information about this worldwide study and the people that can bring it to you. And I want to say a personal thanks to Ronit. This was the best.
Thank you very
Wonderful.
much for inviting me. I really appreciate it. It was a real pleasure getting a chance to answer questions and sort of meet everyone.
Rabbi, they're saying that they're not seeing your email.
No? Okay, we
Yeah.
should do it again.
Yeah. Oh, I have a Cecilia. Let me see if I can get this. Okay. Goncalves. I probably, her last name is spelled Goncalves. Goncalves. She says, Ronit, please, is it possible to buy the retablas you shown in your PowerPoint? Thank you.
Well, I'm not selling my retablos. Those belong to me, and one belongs to a family that I'm not allowed to name. But I'm giving you the website for the artist, and you can commission your own.
Okay. So
I'm giving you his website right now. Oh, I can't. Hold on. I can't just paste it. 1 second. Let me see what that was. If you Google Charles Carrillo Santero.
Right.
You can, or Saint Art, you can go to his website. He's a wonderful artist, wonderful. And you can, ask him if he has any more, if he can make you one. It's amazing, his work. All the paints he mixes from, as I said, he really does paint that way. He doesn't buy paints.
Okay, David Wax has posted HTTPS Santos FNM. I imagine that's from newmexico.com/shop. Can we unmute David Wax, please? Blanca?
Yes, give me a second.
While she's unmuting David, I would like to just thank everyone for being here today. We really appreciate your attendance, and I hope you're walking away with some new information.
I asked him to unmute. Yes.
Okay. David, please unmute if you wanted to, say anything or.
Yeah, no, I just I posted that link that she mentioned. That's the link to Carrillo's website, New Mexico.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you receive that link? I'm hoping that
It's in the chat.
It's in
yeah,
the
right.
Mhm.
I'm just checking I'm going to give you about a minute here to copy that link in case you want it, everyone. And then we'll close this this session now.
And if I didn't get to, I know there were a bunch of questions in the chat. I didn't have a chance to look, but if anyone still wants to send me a question later, I'll be happy to answer it. I just sort of, we are constrained by time and we may not have gotten to your question, but you're welcome to write it.
I think that we did, yeah. And if you do have one, Rabbi, we still don't see your contact information.
I think it went, for some reason, it went to David.
Oh, can you pull down? There should be like an arrow there or more or something.
Meeting group chat.
Yeah.
Everybody will
Yeah.
get it.
I'm looking and I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, I also wrote my email. Apparently it's not visible. I don't know why not.
It's not, yeah, it's not visible here.
So what I will do,
I have a
will-
better idea. Why don't we have you send it to everyone or something?
I will include those the links and the emails on the recording, the link for to the recording. So expect
Better.
an email from the society with all this information.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. And we will close
Thank
for
you,
now. I don't see
Blanca.
any more questions.
You're welcome.
Hope to see you again in the future.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, everyone. Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Ronit.
Corinne, thank you too.
Certainly great to see you.
Good to see you as well. Bye now, everyone. Ci vediamo presto.
Hag Purim Sameach.